Oh, wild wind, wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou, from whose unseen presence the leaves, dead, are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. Yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence stricken multitudes, oh, thou, who chariotest them to their dark wintry bed. The winged seeds, where they lie, cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion o'er the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed the air, with living hues and odors, plain and hill. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer, preserver, here, oh, here. All right, so that's the first stanza. An ode is a lyrical poem. Now, lyric is separated from narrative. Lyric is a feeling. Most songs are lyrics. You know, there's a few songs that are narrative, but a lyric is the expression of a deep feeling or idea, not a story. This is an ode is a lyrical poem that is an address. You are addressing a subject. A subject. It uses the literary device called apostrophe, and it's not the grammatical punctuation mark of apostrophes. The literary device of apostrophe is to actually directly address a person or object or idea that is not present. So in this case, Shelley is addressing the west wind. So yeah, if it blows west, this indicates a certain time of year. And he says, so first of all, the poem is written in, if you did, you can count the number of lines in each canto. So it has cantos, stanzas. Each canto has 14 lines. So each of those 14, in those 14 line cantos, the rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B, C, B, D, C, D, C. So it's very, very close to the sonnet structure. It's not exactly, but inside each canto, the next stanza, the new rhyme scheme of the next stanza matches the middle line of the previous stanza. So like line 2, dead, and then line 4, red and bed. Cool, huh? And then it has a couplet at the end. And this is called the tarzarima, and that's an Italian structure from Dante. So it has 5 cantos. We start off with this personification. The west wind is made to become a human, it takes human form almost, because of all the things he says. You do this, you do this. I'm addressing you directly. So it doesn't make any sense to address anybody but a human. So he personifies this west wind. It's like a character in the poem. And he starts off with some alliteration. Wild west wind. Wah, wah, wah. And it's funny, every time a tornado hits some community, the people say, it sounded like a freight train. And I never understood that until I actually heard what a tornado sounds like when you're in a house. And it goes, like that. Well, the high-pitched squeal is the wind whipping between the houses and around the different objects, like a whistle. And the is the wind picking up the siding of the houses and slapping against the house. What does this wind sound like? Just wind. Doesn't it sound like, doesn't that kind of like a W? Wah, wah, wah. Right? So wild west wind. He evokes the wind, even the sound of the wind in the first 4 words of his poem. And that's what I call good alliteration. I mean, there's alliteration just to have it. And then there's alliteration to make it like the thing you're describing. And then he goes on, thou. He says, wind, you are. This is a metaphor, right? Comparing 2 things without using like or as. Wind, you are. In fact, I name you the breath of autumn's being. Okay, so breath. I want to say something to you right now. I study creation stories. I love creation stories. And when I teach world literature, it's a big part of my thing. But I've studied a bunch of them. And the longer I study them, the more I understand that I didn't come up with all this, but there are distinct differences. There are distinct similarities that occur among a vast majority of them. I would say a plurality. I would say almost all of them have what I'm talking about. They have a flood. They have mother and father gods. They have the gods who have to make the earth, prepare the earth for humanity. And then you always have the first 1, 2, 3, how many ever attempts to create humans. And I could go on all day, but the attempt to create humans fails. But always with that last human that becomes us. This human always starts with mud or clay or wood. And the creator gods almost always impart the gift of life, the spirit of life, into the man or the person with breath. You might think of Genesis, and God breathed the spirit of life into Adam. So it's always the breath. And so breath is synonymous with soul, spirit. Yeah. The soul or the spirit. What is it? In Latin, spiritus means wind, breath, and soul. It's also the root of inspiration. Yeah. Yeah. So if the wind is the spirit of autumn, and this poet is addressing the spirit of autumn, autumn's breath, and then breath is also synonymous with inspiration. God inspired me with my soul. The muse inspires the bard with the epic poem. What he's doing here is he's evoking the muse. That's what it's called. And you guys, I'll briefly say, writers, I would not get involved with any of these people. They're no good because they are on a mission. True writers and poets, they write not because they want to, but because there is some ghost inhabiting their soul that makes them write. They just have this insatiable need to create. And like in Shelley's case, he wanted to save the world, for lack of a better word. And so when writers evoke the muse, they feel this need. They feel this need to get their art, their words, their philosophy out there. And it's because it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But they're asking for help. Oh, muse, help me, come into me, right? This is what he's doing. He's evoking the muse. But in such a beautiful way, he says, thou whose unseen presence, and there it is, unseen presence. That's like the force, Luke Skywalker's force. That's like what the Taoists call, or the Taoists and Shaolin folks, they call the chi. It's what Christians call the Holy Ghost. But in any event, it's this unseen thing that is happening all around us. And it's controlling things, but we just can't detect it. We always feel it. It's the energy that makes things happen. This unseen presence. You are this unseen presence. The leaves, the dead leaves, they are dead, are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. An enchanter is like a wizard or a magician, a witch. And you can see now, this imagery is spectacular. You can see the dead leaves. Because what happens in autumn? I'm not sure we have autumn in Texas. We have summer, 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 3 weeks of winter, and then summer again. Well, we have spring for about 3 days. Right? But other places, they have straight up 4 seasons of the year, right? But autumn is the time of the year. It's the 3rd season of the year when the crops are gathered and the leaves fall. You grow your crops in summer, and then the leaves fall, and then what happens after autumn? Winter. Winter, everything dies in winter, except in Texas where everything's still green because there's cedar trees and it causes allergies. No, but really the crops die in winter. It's cold in the winter. The winter is something we endure just to get to the other side, which is spring and summer. Okay. So, but autumn is the force that kills the earth in preparation for winter. Damn, what a job that would be, right? But he says, you are the unseen presence that leaves run from, just like if there's a magician putting spells on you. You are. I mean, you can't see the wind, but you can see the leaves scurrying away. The leaves are yellow and black and pale and hectic red. The hectic in this point is the fever you get when you have tuberculosis. Yellow, maybe cholera or dysentery. Black, gangrene and frostbite. Pale as a dead body. So see how that works. The diction there, even just those colors indicate death, destruction, and decay. Red is blood. He says, when you come, multitudes are stricken with pestilence because you come bringing death. You come like a charioteer and you put them in your chariot and ride them off to their dark wintry bed, which is death. But then there are the seeds, the winged seeds. Why are they winged? Because the wind controls them too. It gets up under the seeds and spreads them into the air. Seeds flowing all in the air. The winged seeds are taking, you, the chariot, are taking the winged seeds where they lie cold and low. But what are the seeds? They are so they are the future trees and plants. They are the babies to be born in the spring. So you not only kill everything that is here, all the vegetation, but you pick the seeds up and deliver them to their fields, furrows, to the soil, to the earth, so that they can lay low throughout the winter, and then next spring have their moment and become alive and live their lives. They are all like corpses until thine azure sister. So that would be spring. The azure is blue, so it'd be blue sky. The spring or summer comes. That is your sister. And the spring wind blows. And you guys, we're about to have spring. Spring is my favorite. Spring is absolutely my favorite season. And what does spring represent? It represents rebirth. It represents there was death and decay, and now we start new. It represents newness and change and difference, a fresh start, blank slate, a new beginning. It represents redemption. Yeah, there was all that, but now we move forward, and this is a new time. It's a cleansing. When spring blows her horn over the dreaming earth and fills the sweet buds like flocks freed into the air with living hues and odors on a pane. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer, preserver. Hear, oh, hear. All right, so I want you to key in on that destroyer and preserver bit. That's from Hindu, the Hindu, that's from Hindu religion. You have Shiva and Vishnu. And the idea of this is that Shiva is the destroyer and Vishnu is the creator. You have to have the both in the Hindu faith. You have to have both. You can't have creation without destruction. Shiva comes first and then Vishnu. Now the next one. Thou, oh my God, okay. Thou on whose stream mid the steep sky's commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves shed, shook from the tangled boughs of heaven, angels of rain and lightning, there are spread. On the blue surface of thine airy image, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce Myadad, even from the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith's height, the locks of the approaching storm, thou dirge. Of the dying year to which this closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre, vaulted with all thy congregated might of vapors, from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. Oh, here! So that last repeated, it's kind of a refrain, oh, here, he's saying, he's addressing the west wind, what he conceives as the most powerful force of all, the destructor. He is addressing the west wind. Oh, hear me, hear me. So he has a message. He's really serious about wanting the west wind to hear his message. In his case, it's a request. And then the next thing is we have something called enjambment. If you look at the lines flow. One line flows to the next line. When it's stopped, it means it comes to a grammatical and punctuation pause at the end of each line. A full thought is in that line. But in this case, like, look at the locks of the approaching storm, thou dirge of the dying year. So you can see in poetry, it is a way, it's like line economy. It's a way to make the lines mean multiple things at the same time. In this case, he's saying the locks of approaching storm, and he's calling thou dirge. He's calling the west wind a dirge, which is the lament for someone who is dead, or a sad, sad song. You are a dirge. But then it goes on. You are the dirge of the decaying year. So see how it works in kind of a couple of different ways. But look at this. First, we were talking about the wild wind and how it picks up the seeds and deposits the seeds. Next, we're talking about the clouds in the sky. The clouds of the earth, decaying leaves are shed, and they're shook, as if shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. And then he says, like the bright, now this is simile, like the bright hair uplifted. When you walk out into the wind and your hair blows straight up, like the light hair, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce Myadad. And that is usually a female. It's from the ancient Greeks, and it is a follower of the goddess Dionysus. And Dionysus is the god of partying. It literally means the ravers, the raving ones. Dionysus is the god of wine and partying and sex and just all the sauce, all the extra stuff in life, the good stuff. And these Maianids were always female, and they were crazy partiers. To party was divine for them. That was their god. Drunken orgies, and you can fill in the rest. So for you, West Wind, you are like raising the hair. Like, that's powerful, but you raise the hair of one of these women, and they are the ones who participate in religious ecstasy. So you're above and beyond them. You raise their hair in the wind with your wind. All right. So then we have, you're the dirge of the dying year, to which the closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre. A sepulchre is a tomb. It says, vaulted with all thy congregated might. And you guys, it's so like congregated. That is the congregation of worshipers also. Vaulted is a cathedral. So you will be the dome of that cathedral, of that vaulted cathedral. And the congregation of worshipers stand beneath you in awe. And then next will come spring, fall, winter, and then spring. And in spring, what happens? We have storms, black rain and fire and hail. You are the one who ushers in. Your wind gives us winter, who then makes the earth ready for spring. Yeah. So there's a dark side of nature. There's all the storms, and that is what the west wind makes earth ready for. He speaks of the Mediterranean, and if you know anything about sailing, the Mediterranean is notoriously bad. So we have west wind, then we have the clouds, and now we have the Mediterranean. He is an interesting image here. He says, he was in Italy, right? He was standing there very near a place I love very much called the Cinque Terre, 5 fishing villages, and it's amazing. But he's standing there and he's looking into the Mediterranean surface, and behind him are these ruined villas from the height of the Roman era. And in the surface of the water, the image of the ruined Roman villas is wavering, it's modulating. And so the west wind even has its say over our vision of the past. But think about it. Those people in Rome, they thought Rome would last for it. Like, if you ask an ancient Roman, will there ever be a time without the empire? Come on. That's pretty stuck up, pretty ostentatious. But it did, didn't it? Rome ended. If you ask an American, is there going to be ever a time without America? Probably so. Osmandias. So here we have these reflected villages. But what was Rome but something that stood and then fell? But then again, what exists has to fall before something new can rise from its ashes. And that's really what this poem is about. And he goes on and he says, "Oh, here for the final time." And then he says this. This is his message to the west wind, the most powerful force of all. "If I were a dead leaf, thou mightest bear. If I were a swift cloud to fly with thee, a wave to pant beneath thy power and share the impulse of thy strength. Only less free. If I was any one of those things, you could control me. If I was a leaf, you could pick me up. If I was a cloud, you could blow me around. If I was a body of water, you could make waves on me. And I could share the impulse of your strength that way. Only less free than thou. Oh, uncontrollable. Directed rest, uncontrollable. Even if if even I were, as in boyhood, and could be the comrade of thy wanderings over heaven. As then, when to outstrip thy skyey speed scarce seemed a vision, I would ne'er have striven. And this is his as thus with me in prayer, in my sore need, here's my request. Oh, lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud. I fall upon the thorns of life. I bleed. A heavy weight of hours has chained and bowed one, two, like thee, tameless and swift and proud. So I fall upon the thorns of life. I bleed. And you start talking about thorns and bleeding, that's Jesus. So he is likening himself to Christ in that Christ was a martyr. Christ bore the sins of humanity to wash them free. So Christ was like the west wind, wasn't he? Things have to be destroyed before they're created. Like, oh, and now he's saying, wait, writers, what I want to do, that's like the west wind. People believe all kinds of stupid stuff today, but I have to destroy that. I have to destroy it so that something else can be built in its place. And just that, writers, creators, artists, all that. I fall upon the thorns of life. You do anything. I bleed. I'll do anything in order to not be famous, not a true person, but to get your message out. And then make me thy lyre. So I want to tell you, there's this amazing musical instrument called an Anilonian lyre. And it's a stringed instrument. It is like a guitar a little bit. It's basically a box, a long rectangular box, and it has two bridges on the side with strings across the top and sound holes. And this is an old instrument that you wouldn't find one today. But what people did is they would put this thing in their windowsill, and the wind would blow through the windowsill and play the instrument. It's kind of like wind chimes, but there would be sounds coming. It's like a guitar that the wind is playing. What an amazing thing, you know? So nature that romantics thought of as divine, as straight up divinity, and the west wind that's chief among them, the destroyer, plays this sound on this musical instrument that we can hear. No one's there. Make me thy lyre. Even as the forest is, because you can hear the wind whipping through the forest. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autonomal tone. Sweet though in sadness, be thou spirit fierce, my spirit. Be thou me, impetuous one. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe. Like withered leaves to quicken a new birth, and by the incantation of this verse, scatter as from an inextinguished hearth, ashes and sparks, my words, among mankind. Be thou my lips to awakened earth. The trumpet of prophecy, O wind. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? That's it. So life is hard right now, I know. We've all been through a lot. My daughter's suffering, you're suffering. We're at home. You're at home listening to me. I'm in my garage. We can't go anywhere. What do you want to do? You want to go to a concert? What do you want to do? Meet a guy? Can't do it. Oh, you want to go downtown and party? You want to go to the bookstore and read it? So, I mean, we're suffering, right? It's a tough time. And on top of that, you guys have a big workload and you have college and all that to worry about. Your parents may have gotten COVID and you're worried about them dying. I mean, there's so much. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Life is like a sinusoidal wave. For every peak, there's a valley. For every valley, there's a peak. It doesn't stay bad all the time because mutability. Because the only thing that's certain in the world is change. Yeah. Things will get better. Things will get better. But not only that, this poem is about creation. And it's about the destruction that has to occur before creation. Theory of evolution. A lot had to die in order for that to come in and be accepted. And people, human beings, are just by nature creators. And some of us more than others, but I mean, if you think about it, it is the primary drive to create. What are some things we create? Not just books, but what do we create as humans? Music. Man, how many stories are there of the young aspiring musician picking out some? You got Bon Jovi in his garage with Richie Sambora. Yeah, man. Got Beethoven. You got Mozart. Music. The one thing that doesn't tear people apart, by the way. What else? More people. Babies. So, I mean, that is the most basic instinct, isn't it? To procreate, to create a new person. That is the most creative thing you can do. And I mean, it's just inside of you, just seething to do. What else? Families, cathedrals, art, groups of people, nations, cities, religions, businesses. So it's really like the primary drive of humanity to just keep creating, just keep creating, right? And so when you look at it from that perspective, this poem is about the essential nature of humanity. And it's about one who desperately wants to create something important and good and new and have it help people, have it change the world. And to do that, he evokes the west wind, Destructor. He just bears himself to it and says, Destructor, destroy me. Be fierce, destroy me. Tear me down. Tear me down, and then infuse me with the seeds of this new thing, and I will be your, what does he say? You will be the trumpet for me. You will be this incantation of verse will scatter across the world. My dead thoughts, you will scatter them across the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. Make me your instrument. Make me your lyre. I'm here. I'll do anything. I'll fall down on my knees. I'll humble myself. I'll say whatever. I mean, anything. It's not about me. It's about the creation. There's been a lot made of Jesus is saying that the kingdom of heaven is found in a mustard seed. Well, think about it. It's a seed. It's the most insignificant of all seeds, a mustard seed. But it's a seed. And that, the most profound thing I can imagine is 2 + 2 = 4. Next to that is throwing a seed in the ground and life growing up to the sun. It's a miracle, right? So yeah. Lots of people really want to have a family. It's an innate need. People want to have kids, right? Sometimes it's not what you think. I mean, it can be a very rough thing. I'm not sure if you could see it from the other side, like if you've already had your kids and they're gone and all that. If you could see it, I'm not sure you'd ever do it.